Check. I know these last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Please, Lord, forgive them. They try to hold back and chillin' like they ain't know it was written. Break every chain. Wanna free my people from mental prisons. The eyes on the sparrow, I know we'll narrow divisions. Hope is the boat to keep us afloat just as you envision. Faith to erase the pain from all of our people slain. Desperate for change, actions to back up your smoking name. When they throw dirt on us, we use it to play game. When it rains, we go greater together, no matter the weather. Trust these dark days, gonna get better. Know that love will be the light to guide all our endeavors. And even if the time should rise, we'll ride it forever. Why? We are mighty, we fight for our lives, cause we're dying to live. Future is ours, the timing is now. Black will be proud, we're saying it loud, we gave it a roar. There's so much more to give, we breaking down on the floor. I know the times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up, we gon' rise up, we gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. I tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Never backing down for the cause. Try to put our life on pause, cause we move in the image of God. No matter the hate that's spoken, our spirits remain unbroken. The environment says you can't count us out. We are the answer. From the youth to the elders, ain't what you can tell us. Silent brilliance of mind, heart is bright as sunshine. Hope your spirit's alive, so that we won't be denied. So vibration is high, and the frequency so angelic, like rise up, people come on, rise up, I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. I tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up.
Woo! Yeah.
Rise up. Oh, rise up.
Come on, family.
Yeah, you already know, family.
Yes.
It's Monday night, so that means it is time for Soundbytes International Radio. The Black Conscious Acclaim One World is the aim. Bringing the conversations pertinent to our diasporic landscape to ensure the healing and growth of our community, our diasporic landscape the world over. Of course, I'm Hesir Nefara.
It's Nefara Tumati.
Absolutely, you already know. As you can see, we stay try out some new things, right? So we look a little different, maybe oriented a little differently. So we feel like we in a good space. You know, it's important to have your space right? Yes, you know what I mean? To be able to focus and be able to create what's necessary for your platform. So, you know, and this is Soundbytes International Radio. This is our independently owned, Black owned operation. Looking at the tag team champions of this joint. So, you know, we're doing what we do. So we appreciate everybody that tunes in. Please tune in today. Join the conversation. Share the link. We are running live now. On our Facebook, our YouTube channel, and on our Twitter page, Periscope somewhere. So, so if you're watching on any of those
Wide Web streets.
Right. So if you're watching on any of those platforms, trust and believe, we are live and direct. So make sure you go to visit thisissoundbytes.com. You should see it streaming across the screen there. Thisissoundbytes.com. You can, follow those other platforms as well. If you prefer YouTube better, if you prefer Twitter better, Periscope, whatever the case may be. And please follow the platforms, right? Like the platforms or follow the platforms. Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate that. Remember, again, so you go to thisissoundbytes.com. Not only can you go there to find our social platforms where you can follow us streaming live now, but also you can get some exclusive some Soundbytes merch where you can represent the Soundbytes family, represent the fortifications of the family, rep your set wherever you go.
Now. Let's do that. Let's unify.
And also there is an opportunity. Again, we are an independently operated organization, so should you feel so compelled to contribute, find value in what we offer here with the Soundbytes platform, there is an option to contribute on the site as well to support the Soundbytes movement, to keep things going, to keep things growing, keep things flourishing. Any size gift is appreciated. Shouts out to everybody that's donated in the past.
We truly appreciate you.
You're coming out. We come out of heart with this. You come out of your heart to support us in that way. We do appreciate all energy yields. So definitely you can do that.
Reciprocity, mutuality, balance. I give, you take, I give. I share back and forth. Did I do that right?
Yeah.
You take, I give, I give. You take. That's not it, right?
What? Hold on.
Let's get it right.
Anyway.
I give, you take. If you take, you give. Balance.
Right. I think
that's how it goes.
That's
right.
Y'all get what we talking about. Y'all know.
You
follow us. You know what we talking
about. You feeling it. You feeling.
So
feeling these African vibes out here.
So yeah, share the broadcast, share the link, and join us in the conversation in the comments today. So we're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about some things. Of course, it's still September. So it's Black Reading Month. Actually, gonna pull some excerpts out before the broadcast ends. We'll try to pull some excerpts out, just some more reflections of what we've been reading. You can also let us know what you've been reading in the comments. That's been really thoughtful. So, but we're gonna talk about a few things today on the front. We want to kick it off, discussing kind of just how we're socialized in the social landscape, right? How are we looking at ourselves? Our representative selves, how we create our representative selves, how that's infused in us and how we wear it in our day to day, right? Looking at what the propaganda and the different things that kind of lend themselves to how we've kind of been viewed in society, or how we view ourselves in our own communities, or what have you. So we want to take a look at that really today. We'll share some clips on the show as well a little bit to kind of expound on those conversations. But really, it's important to know. And again, let us know in the comments your thoughts on that. Like looking at what we have in the media, looking at who's telling the stories. Right, we always talk on the show about who's holding our narratives, who's telling our stories of who we are and who are we believing as the people. Who are we believing? Right. That's telling those stories as true about ourselves. What holds true to us based on who's telling the stories, right? And we talk about that because for a long time we have been socialized in certain stereotypes by society that has us even questioning ourselves, like, am I this? Am I in the hood? Am I just destined to just be in the hood forever? Am I destined to just play basketball and rap or whatever, or all the tropes that right. We've been socializing up to now. We'll look at our movies, right? We're for a long time, and we're only very recently coming out of this idea of the first person killed in the horror movie, or even though we'd probably be the most intelligent person in the movie to know what's going on, right? Or the slow person, or the dumb person, or the ghetto person, that one black friend, and they're always the loudest in the room. But they always got so much to say that it just sounds, quote unquote, crazy to everyone else or what have you. So we want to look at how the media represents us in those ways, and how we may take on onus of that, how we feed into that, right, and how that spills over back into our communities. The residual effects of that. I don't know if you got any thoughts about that.
Well, our journey across space and time, we must always consider the fact that we initially got to this country, we had a function. There was meetings, collaboration, and we always talk about people make things happen and people don't make things happen.
Right.
So we didn't just get here. And I think it's really important that we as African people take into consideration that life wasn't always on this trajectory. This is actually what one of my old mentors, and we give him powerful ashe as he's transitioned into the ancestral realm, Dr. Boiling. He believes that this experience for African people around the world was a ripple in the human landscape, right? Because this is not the natural progression of events. These events that have occurred because someone disrupted the natural progression of life experience, right? The animals, the ecosystem, the people, the evolution, learning, expanding, socialization, making we as our growth happens, we make accommodations for certain circumstances within our life space based on our circumstances. And we would have eventually made whatever necessity, whatever right, we would have created systems to accommodate those circumstances. What has happened with the African is such a unique experience, very different than other groups, right? Subgroups, subgroups, etc. Those that were not entirely wiped off the planet, right? Because we do understand that there are groups of people that were on the planet that, due to selfishness, was wiped from the planet. Like their genetic code, their knowledge, their ancestral line, their history, their world contributions were taken away from the planet, period. We know this. And some celebrate Leopold for part of that, when he went into the Congo and decided that he was going to disrupt that space and what he was going to create from that, right, for Belgium. So, and that's only one of the many, right? We can look at the indigenous of this land, and we can now look at the indigenous of this land and who they are today. And they've managed to keep a hold of some of their substance, but there's a huge degree that's been taken away. It's magnified when you look at the Africans, because we're not gone from the planet as a whole group of people. We've been fragmented, and there's been consistent disruption in our flow of evolution. And as a means of the matrix to maintain its control and grasp on us, it continues to socialize us into poor behaviors. So since there was no place for us when we first got here other than worker, other than being told by someone what to do, which means that we didn't have it had become to the reality that we've been reduced to cattle. It was intention to say, you know what, we're going to take these people because we decided that they were savage. We decided that they were savage. Whatever they were doing on this planet long before they met us is irrelevant. We're going to look at them and we're going to say, because they don't wear stockings and because they don't, have whatever Europeans deem to be substantial, they're savage. So this was someone's interpretation.
Right.
So this is why it's important that when we look at ourselves and when we interact with our community, we understand that we've been misfortunately socialized into bad behaviors as an individual as well as a community. There's something that I have to tell my son all the time. When you go out into this world, don't assume people know how to do their job. Don't assume people know how to do their job, because we've been socialized, and we're going to listen to a clip later. We've been socialized into being lazy. We've been socialized and minimized because whiteness has to platform itself. Whiteness as a cultural experience. Whiteness became a cultural experience in America. There are still places around the world where whiteness doesn't have the same type of weight, but because America and Western has made its position around the world, it positions itself in a certain type of way where it doesn't matter where you are. Pretty much whiteness assumes itself to be in the front of the room. Right. Never in the back. Always telling you what to do, never receiving instruction. And there's a sense of disdain when there's an opportunity for them to receive instruction from someone who's African, because it's been inadvertently propagandized into the social construct that whiteness believes itself first and leading. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're not talking about the few here and there and here and there. We're talking about, by and large, social. We're talking about ratios and statistics. There's more of this than it is of that. Right. So, and this has all been, there's a balance now. So now there's a balance of the propaganda of whiteness being presented as first in the front of the room instructing, right? And that African people themselves has been socialized into laziness, lazy brain. And it's unfortunate for me to actually see the residuals of this because I see it every day. And then there's so many of us who believe we're working really hard. What are we working really hard to create? We're working really hard to create a better seat in the master's house. We're not working really, really hard and pushing ourselves to create a stronger African presence and freedom and sovereignty in the world. We're not really working towards that. And even sometimes when I'm having conversations, and I really hope that we have a progressive conversation, I hear the African give me back the rhetoric.
Right.
The African repeats to me back the socialization that is going to end you up as an African in front of a brick wall. Because remember, it was intention that you not have any of these functions. It wasn't meant for you to be doctors and lawyers and run around here talking about rights and voting and all. That was never a part of the conversation. And the fact that you as a part of a society, someone can say, we're going to give you voting rights or we're not going to give you them. We're going to take them away every 10 years. We're going to vote on it. And we're going to decide in a position of superiority. Not in a position as you, an equal participant of this society, and we take in consideration that we jacked up in our history. We did. We had our reasons, excuse me, but we jacked up, and we're willing to concede to that. And we're going to make you an equal participant in this society. Now you have a different whiteness narrative in our space that is capitalizing on the momentum that was built up for the African as not a part of, but a second thought. So family, let's look at how you were socialized. I mentioned that whole conversation of don't assume that people are doing their job. I come on the job and I'm a creative thinker, so I'm going to always creatively figure out ways to do my work easier, right? More systematic. Certain things that are a part of work assignments, et cetera, can be automated. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that has to be a big to-do. Quite often, if things work unison, people work together in harmony to create an outcome. See, this is not language that's generally in the workspace. But as an African who created the first concepts of social behavior and community, the first concept of social behavior and community, so I know this. So I trust that when I say harmony in the workspace, I know what I mean by that. And I want you to see that I mean X, Y, Z. And if you don't, that's fine. Because I'm also going to do my work in a certain trajectory, which is going to provide superior service. And my work is going to be superior, which has happened 99.9% of the time. And guess who is upset about that? Africans who are not thinking, who are not utilizing their intelligence, who are waiting to be told what to do. Who believe they ain't paying me for that, so I ain't getting ready to do you. And I know y'all heard this.
I'm not ready to work.
Y'all got 5 coworkers right now on your job right now that say this all the time. They ain't paying me for that. I ain't doing it.
They ain't paying me to go past 5 o'clock.
They ain't paying me to stay late. I ain't staying.
They ain't paying me to do any more.
They ain't paying me to do no extra nothing. I ain't got to do that. Listen, stand by.
But then in that conversation is what is it? What is it to create the reality of what you want to see in the world? Like they say the whole thing of like, oh, that's the job you want, not the job you have, right? Whatever. But really, it's about like the idea of like, what do you want to create in your world? What do you want for yourself that's better than what you have there versus taking what's available to you, right? Peace and blessings. We see you, brother Joseph. Thank you for joining in, brother Marcellus. We appreciate you.
Peace,
thank you for joining in.
Thank you.
And thank you. That's love. We do appreciate. The sharing of our voice as well, and like the reciprocity of our community. So thank you for joining the conversation, brother, for sure. So yeah, like, and please, whatever we're saying, like, just share your thoughts in the comments.
Share your thoughts, family.
And yeah, it's like really we want to look at like what's the excellence that we're going to create, and no matter what the job is, like really the idea, there's finding a balance in a lot of things, right? Because we want to at the end of the day, Soundbytes, we want to get an understanding of what it means to get closer and closer to our African space, to our people, and getting to our own spaces, right? So we're clear that employment and things like that within the matrix it becomes the quote unquote, I don't want to say necessarily evil per se, but what's necessary to move forward within the matrix.
It's a means to an end.
It's a means to an end within the matrix, right? But in that you want to create, you want to learn, you want to use it as an opportunity to pull all you can and expand yourself for self-efficacy, and improvement on your own self-identity, and how you're seen in the workspace. This is not how you're seen as far as in meaning respectability possibility, but how you're seen as far as like
what's your personal brand?
What's your brand?
What is your personal brand?
What are you creating for? This is who I stand as the African in this space. Like for me, for instance, for both of us, really, but for me, for instance, I know Nefla spoke about her experiences, but no matter what job I'm on, I'm going to be me, right? No matter what space I'm in, I'm going to be who I am, representing an African, in my African essence, right? You know, whether it's like I'm wearing a dashiki or a suit, whatever, but mostly dashikis, and, you know, different, you know, things that are representative of who I am in this landscape. You know, I'm not going to let the job define. I'm not letting the job define that. I'm not letting the space I'm in define that. Not just job. It could be like the luncheon. It could be like a friend's graduate. Whatever it is, you want to be at all times representative of who you are in your African space and how that's been infused within yourself, versus being a reflection of everything the Matrix is telling you are, based off what the Matrix wants you to be versus who you actually are. And whoever the Matrix wants you to be is someone that succumbs to shiftless, and someone that succumbs to the Matrix narrative, right? These people are this, these people are that, Black people are this, X, Y, and Z, and this is where they belong, and that's a supreme untruth, and you want to act within the space of the truth of what it means to be an African, to be in your essence, to be in your excellence, to be brilliant, to be beautiful, to be defiant of what these norms are created in the Matrix that has you thinking something otherwise. And then, you know, in battling the vacant esteem that's been created within our communities, that has us believing that the African over here, we grew up together and he got a leg up, I got to do something to combat him, to keep him back down.
Competing.
Because then what comes in within that is this idea of like, well, then if they're going up and we're here in the same space, and that means I have to show up. And if I don't have enough self-efficacy in myself and weird about myself, then I'm going to feel like I'm not good enough to do that. So that means now his uplift is an attack on me. So now this becomes a battle, right? It becomes colorism. It becomes self-hate. It becomes all these things that have become residual effects of the systemic oppression, epigenetic trauma, and the socialization that's taking place through propaganda since media was created. And then, of course, hearsay and news, even from slavery times, of like who's what, the bucks versus, you know, the little kids versus the women, how they're represented, the house Negro to the field, all those. Whereas that particular form of slavery is no longer existent, there's still a very prevalent form of slavery that's been a residual switch since then, from the prison pipeline to school structures and state tests, to how athletes are treated, you know, in the training regimen, to who's the what, who gets the money. Who gets the rewards of the Matrix? Because the Matrix provides the defined reward.
But it's a what do you call it? Sorry to cut you off. It's a casting system. Because remember, whiteness as a cultural experience, and I think we really need to understand whiteness as a cultural experience. Because human beings, the species of humans, you know, we can look at science, okay, human beings, you know, there are some genetic differences, et cetera, but human beings are human beings, right? So the social behaviors that is whiteness as a cultural experience, that's something completely different from Africanness or Blackness as a socialization. Because what we're seeing are manifestations of an interruption to our communal behavior. There's many things that are in our space that cause us to behave the way that we do. This hatred and this competitiveness towards one another, you know, the brute, you know, we're going to have some clip right now we're going to share with you, and we're going to have an examination as to how the Matrix created this schematic. And then it's so incredible because we rarely can identify within ourselves that we're doing it. And that's the piece that gets to me. This is where I am standing in the space. I'm saying, African, you are responsible. Yes, this is what's going on. This is the social landscape, but you are also responsible, because at this moment we're in a digital era. No information is beyond your reach at this moment. Absolutely. In this moment, if you make the intention, you can put your hand on that information and you can self-educate. So the fact that you don't, because I'm here to say, shouts out to the blissfully ignorant. Must be nice. I'm not celebrating you, right? But I know y'all like, yo, word, that's me right now in these streets. Shouts out to the blissfully ignorant. And I see why you do that. I see why. But that's unfortunate. I need to tap you on the shoulder because we need critical mass to make the shifts, the paradigm shift that we actually want to create in the world space. Not in the narrative, not in the rhetoric. There are actually some things that we as a community can do to change our landscape. And we can be responsible for some of our outcomes. Some of those things, that whip that's outside of our own control, if we were in a space of critical mass, we wouldn't have to worry about that, because that would no longer have the impact that it has. White-centered consciousness has its leverage because of the leverage that we give it. If you were standing in your divine African, the Matrix would not have the leverage that it has, because you would take your $1 trillion plus almost $2 trillion annual and you would build a nation just like that. You would build a nation because your African would direct you. You have the history of all of humanity coded right into your psyche right now. And the day you decide to unlock it and get on the journey to unlock your African centeredness, we're on the road to a different tomorrow. But as long as we delay.
Peace and blessings. Thank you for everybody joining in. Sister Lisa, we'll see you there. Thank you for joining in. Sister Melly, Queen, Ashe, thank you for joining in with the conversation. Please share the link. Please let us continue bringing your comments in, your thoughts in. We appreciate you. Sister Melly Queen says we have to be brutally honest. We are not the same at all. We are, full of the willfully sleep, and the ones that are choking on their fear.
Come on now,
coming through.
Come through.
So we have to be cognizant of these things that are taking place in our community, how we're reacting to it. How we're reacting to it, how we're shaping our identity around these particular things. Brother Kwame Ture, who I said, well, I've been pulling out stuff.
Well, we can say Kwame Nkrumah today and give him some powerful Ashe because this is his born day.
Listen.
Ashe, President Ghana, Pan-Africanist, revolutionary.
Let's
come on now and give powerful Ashe to the ancestor who. And may we be worthy. And I say, may we be worthy because they made sacrifice that cost them their lives. Mm-hmm. They made sacrifices. Our leadership, our intentional and authentic leadership. See, they don't kill folks that do the coon shuffle. They don't kill them. They threaten them and then they fall in line and then they, you know what I'm saying? They don't go for them. They go for the ones that are authentic.
Right.
So may we be worthy, family.
Ashe. I meant to say it was Kwame Ture, Brother Kwame Ture, aka Stokely Carmichael. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, it's part of Black Reading Month. I'm reading Stokely Speaks right now. So there's tons of things to quote and pull from there. One of the things he just said, which relates heavily to this, can you begin to get the guts to develop criteria for beauty for Black people? Your nose is boss, your lips are thick, you are Black, and you are beautiful.
Give thanks
to that. You said that. I was like, yeah, that's a shirt, Playboy. And we need to recognize that.
Maybe
what was defined, maybe be worthy. Absolutely, that was defined as like those tidbits of what our beauty is, what our beauty standards. What does our hair look like? What do our lips look like? Are we trying to tuck in our lips and tuck in our?
Oh man, please! My grandmother told me when I was young to tuck my lips, and I was like, how am I gonna tuck my lips? And I was in the bathroom I was 12 years old trying to figure out how to tuck my lip in. I was like, I was trying. She told me, so I went to the bathroom and I was trying.
How you gonna do? No, and that's traumatizing. That's the things that we bring into the future for our youth when it comes to the epigenetic traumas that our elders needed to deal with. You know what I mean? We do have our elders that have come from where they've come from and are still bringing truth or working to bring truth past on to the youth. But we have a lot of our elders that do have taken on some certain things that are passed down to us epigenetically that honestly aren't working for our growth.
That's right.
And that's where we have to break the ties of the genetic, the generational curses that do take place as a residuals of thoughts and the trauma that have been beat down.
But this is part of the impact.
Our code. It's part of the impact.
This is part of the impact that cut across our development.
Appreciate you, Brother Marcellus. You get listen, write us a letter, send it through. We ready. We appreciate you, brother. We try to bring this conversation here for our family each week.
Listen, drop it in there. Drop it in there. We're definitely in space and we're open for that. But
absolutely.
This is the trauma. These are the things that we get to get in touch with. Because if there's a means to an end in the matrix, but African, it wasn't in our intention. It wasn't set up by the divine that we should come in here and sit on anyone's table.
No.
That was not a part of the landscape.
No.
Right? It wasn't a part of the landscape. So the fact that this dysfunctional behavior is happening, how you untangle a ball of yarn, you just start untangling it. So just look at yourself as untangling this ball of yarn after. Yeah. You are the ball of yarn. Begin to untangle that ball of yarn. And there's some work to do. And there's some, some things, you see that ball of yarn, it's a lot. You're like, whoa, it's a lot. But you got to untangle this ball of yarn, African. This is you.
And I think that...
And this ball of yarn is also us. It represents us as a community. This ball of yarn. But guess what? If all of us start digging at this ball of yarn, we can all fix it better.
Absolutely.
And we can fix it faster.
And that's key. Like when you say that ball of yarn, I think about this a lot, is that we tend to what I think cripples us the most, especially particularly the Black community, but really when you understand that globally, just across all spectrums, we live in this landscape of especially particularly, well, really in the US, but globally, we live in this idea of the scarcity mindset, right? That has us like fearing any bit of truth beyond what's available to us, right? And so when it comes to this idea, this analogy of the yarn, we have so many layers that we have to pull back. It's too much of a daunting task, so to speak, to peel back those layers and see the truths and see what stuff that you might not like and see stuff that you may not have wanted to see and pull back traumas that you didn't want to relive, but understand that these are the pieces of you that have actually made you up, where you may have buried it, but actually you coming to fruition and coming to understanding that it exists brings you closer and closer to yourself. So it is a funky process to unravel.
Yeah.
And also further into what you were saying, it doesn't have to be done alone. Right. And this could look like therapy. This could look like honest reflection with friends, but we wish we did. But a lot of us do because we've also been socialized into radical individualism. We speak about that a lot on the show. This idea that we have to do everything alone, or that we have to go out and get ours because no one else will get it. Close mouth.
Or because we're in competition with each other.
Always in competition.
We're trying to get the platform. We're trying to get the highlight. We're trying to be seen in the matrix. Right. These things are not African. Right. So when that happens, know that you got a lot of work to do. When you as an African find yourself in a situation where you're in competition with another African, that's a problem. That's a big problem. 90% of the problems that I've had for myself wasn't even unraveling my own ball of yarn. And let me tell you something. I stood at the front like this, boss, and I went through my yarn. I've been going through my yarn for years, family. Years. It's taken over 2 decades to go through this ball of yarn of my own self, because dealing with those socializations, dealing with those traumas from family and parents and community and relationships, right? All of those things. But guess what? When you've done so much work and now you have other people who are not doing work, make no mistake about it. I didn't show up like this yesterday. I'm gonna go ahead and brush my shoulders.
It's time and commitment
I'm gonna go ahead
to self.
and give me some. I'm gonna go ahead and give my ancestors some of the glory, and the divine the glory, and my angels who stepped into my life the glory. But I'm here to tell you, everyone is responsible for doing ultimately their work themselves. Right. So I didn't get here yesterday.
Right. You're not gonna pray the pain away.
No.
You can say your prayers, but go get to work too.
No, faith without works is dead.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
And we didn't get here by ourselves.
It takes a journey.
Process.
That's what I was saying with that unraveling. It takes a journey. You have to see what you haven't seen. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't even know you don't know it. That's through process of work to even understand that that's the space to even exist in. But you have to do the work. You know what I mean? And yes, it tends to become a challenge when you're in the work and other people may not be in as engrossed or as interested in the work as you are. But you have to be. It's
for commitment.
It's consistent practice, right? And mastery yourself starts with doing the work consistently and being in it until others get it, right? This isn't about exhausting yourself, but it's really about understanding that you get to show up, right?
I was really excited.
Yeah.
On the journey, I was like, let me take everybody. Let me tell everybody. Let me tell family, friends, family. And you know how many balls folk dropped on me? Like, they ain't here for that. And it took me some years to come clear that, you know what? Some of these Africans just not here for it. Some of these Africans just gonna have to be left behind. You know what helped me with that? I'm not a Christian. I haven't been a Christian for decades, but I am a Christian practicing Buddhist. But I hear you tell me this. When I was a Christian, there was a verse that says, if they don't receive you, dust the dust from your feet and leave that place. So that piece of gold, that was a gold gem right there for me. That was a gem for me that came to me out of my sleep one night. I had carried so heavy, and literally started 3 years ago. 3 years ago of clear mind. And then listen, the development is a process. I am the quintessential function is the development piece. So I went through that work, but I said to myself here, I rose up from my bed and I said, they don't receive you, dust the dust from your feet. Just like that. At the end of the day, you're only responsible for yourself. Every man stands in the nudist, at right there at the balance, at the scales of my eye. Everyone stands there on their own accord. And sometimes trying to hold on causes more damage than letting it go. Just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let go.
Let it go.
Because for every one, there's 10,000 ready to go.
Absolutely. And
for every one that you release, There's 10,000 that need the support.
Exactly, because holding on actually blocks the space for the others to get in.
For access.
If you're holding on to the door, like no one else can get in. You hold a closed fist, nothing else can get in the fist. But the moment you open it up, you create possibility to grab hold of something.
For something to fall in there.
Something to fall in there.
Okay.
Well, there's other people or money or whatever it is.
Opportunity, circumstances, space. It makes space in your heart, because carrying family, friends, and foes, these folks, if they're not in your space, they're not standing for the best possibility for you and them, then they're impediment. And sometimes you just can't carry folks.
Yeah.
And that's the healing piece that, you can seed, you can do with so much, but you can seed the spirit. And like I said, they always come back, especially because our vibration is not malicious. So a lot of times we don't realize that we're being malicious out of survival. We've been socialized into frantic, into despair, into desperation. A lot of jealousy and the envy and the behavior and the pushing and the elbows come because we've been socialized into scarcity mode. But usually when they figure it out, there's still some work that needs to be done on themselves. And see, we tell it because we're living it. We're not telling it because it's in a book. It is in a book.
It is in a book.
But we're telling it to you fast forward because we read the book, we applied, we've done some case study on ourselves and our life experience, and we're sharing the results with you. So this is why we talk about ourselves, because in the African community, there are no big eyes and little U's. We honor our elders. We honor our chiefs. We honor our individuals who came before us because they've done the work first and because they're willing to pull forward. But ultimately, everybody has a function for the harmony of the community.
Sure.
So everybody is equal in what they have to offer. Also is equal. So there are no big guys and little U's. So when we have that experience and I run into it too often, it's a big problem.
Absolutely. Brother Marcellus checks in and says,
thanks.
The most profound, I'll bring up on the screen now.
Come on, family, let's hear it.
The most profound thing I heard tonight was when you said, don't assume that people know how to do their job. When I hear y'all speak these truths that I've learned from my own self-discovery, I'm reminded that everyone doesn't share this understanding, black or white. As people, as humans, we are here to help each other, yet there's so many traps that we have to navigate through. Listen, just to be okay. There's so many distractions that take you away from that source. You're involved with intelligent people. Bless. We appreciate you as well. Thank you for your share. But it is really real. It is. And when you say there's so many distractions that take you away from the source, and there's so many traps that we have to navigate through just to be okay.
Just to be okay.
Just to be okay. Not to be excellent and great.
Not to be balling out of control.
Just to be okay.
Just to be okay.
To be clear, we've been placed into this pressure cooker, this pressure cooker called life, to just survive. We should not be living to just be surviving amidst our circumstances. There's an opportunity. There's an opportunity, and there's all things available in this earth space that is abundant enough for us to all thrive equally. But someone has made a decision that says otherwise for certain people and for certain sects through the assumption of power and through the means at which that power is attained.
This is true.
Right? Through the physicality, through brutality, through years and years of these things happening across the colonized landscape across the globe. This is what's happened. Right? And as a result of that, we get the residuals of now where we think things are good because it's not happening in that manner. But there's many residuals that we experience right now that take place through redlining that was supposedly taken away in the 60s and still here.
Right.
From keeping us from owning property or owning land, from workplace discrimination to you banning people for their hairstyles to
see, this is all white. This is all white as in the front. That's foolishness. How you gonna tell me that I got a problem? You got a problem with my hair growing out of my scalp the way it grows out of my scalp? Who are you to say?
When did that determine my job, my job readiness and my skills? But
see, this is socialization. So we're going to talk about the propaganda that socialized anti-Blackness. So we've already talked about first half. We talked about the socializations of African people, right, against themselves, right? The socialization of the African. Now we can talk about the propaganda that has fueled anti-Blackness.
Right.
But we want to listen to the clip.
Yeah, so we're gonna play a little really quick. So stick with us and just checking with what you're hearing, family.
A second category of Black stereotypes were crafted to send the message that Black people are generally unfit for society.
What are their character traits?
Ignorant, dull-witted, lazy, and
Lucky.
The Sambo caricature, essentially a slow-witted, happy slave, sent the message that black people were childlike, lazy, and perpetually smiling.
I thought of it all by myself.
Well, you must be thinking better than you used to, James Henry.
Yes, Master Curry. I even think more often now.
This caricature is at least as old as America, but was popularized by 19th century blackface minstrel theater performers with painted-on smiles.
Show.
And it promoted the idea that black people liked being enslaved because they were simple-minded, perpetual children unable to care for themselves.
You gonna put your shoes on? Let them save them in case my feet wear out. Then I have them.
The coon caricature similarly ridiculed the idea that black people could successfully integrate as free members of American society. Like the Sambo, these coons, also called zip coons and urban coons, were depicted as lazy and unintelligent.
Well, why don't you get a job and go to work?
You almost had me a job this morning.
However, while the Sambo was content to be a slave, the coon wanted to be free. Minstrel shows and beyond derived their humor from mocking this aspiration as ludicrous, showing the coon trying and failing to assimilate into white society, speaking in malapropisms, dressing flamboyantly, and avoiding work at all costs.
When the man said, boy, you give me a situation, he'd have to put me through a simple self-examination.
No, stupid. You mean a civil service examination.
Stephen Fetchit, one of the first black actors to reach mainstream prominence, became synonymous with this caricature.
Stephen, here's a letter for you. Well, why you? I'd bring it to me myself.
His slow-talking mannerisms and exaggerated body movements othered his characters to an extent that made his performances almost grotesque.
All right, you can't say I never told you now.
Though this caricature has been largely condemned, its lasting legacy is evident in the volume of 20th century films and TV shows in which a black or black-coded character's slowness is played for laughs.
Are you brainless?
I speak.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
Mr. Jaja Binks. Mr. Your humble servant.
It can be seen in classic Disney animations, from Dumbo, whose crows are coded as black,
They dead, is they?
No, dead people don't snow. Or do they?
to The Jungle Book, whose King Louie, referencing Louis Armstrong, and his black-coded monkey followers are characterized as dirty, amoral, and uncivilized.
Why, you flat-nosed, little-eyed, flaky creep. The disgraceful performance. Associating with those undesirable, scatterbrained apes?
When Louis sings about wanting to be like a man,
I want to be a man cub, and stroll right into town, and be just like the other men.
this can be read as expressing his desire to be white, and therefore treated as human.
An ape like me, can learn to be human.
Yeah. So.
Yep. So this is what the world is seeing. This is how the world sees us. One more clip, and this is going to be an audio clip. So, family, let's hear this. Have some music. Y'all don't want to hear some music right now? Hold on. We want a clip. Here we go.
And the angry black woman trope has been weaponized against any black woman who dares to speak out against systemic oppression and injustice perpetrated against her, even being leveled at accomplished professional women like Michelle Obama and Serena Williams.
It was called an angry black woman.
Finally, a third category of pervasive stereotypes paints black people as animalistic. Whereas the Mammy and the Tom caricatures were purposefully desexualized, certain caricatures portrayed black people as wild or animalistic by hypersexualizing them.
I know I'm not good enough for you, but let me have your precious white body just once.
The Jezebel caricature portrays a black woman who is lascivious and insatiable by nature.
Okay.
I'm told that you are a dangerous man, aren't you? I like that.
Well, this is our calling card around the world, locally and abroad. These are the cues that the police are utilizing out of their unconscious minds. Out of their unconscious minds. We're looking at a narrative that has been carefully woven through basic sociology, psychology, behavioral conditioning, to the point where we have 5-year-olds, because we always go back to that research that says 5-year-olds who know the black doll as the bad doll,
right?
Who already instilled in 5-year-olds anti-blackness. The black doll is the bad doll. The white doll is the good doll. Now, people make things happen and people don't make things happen. And we're clear that the things that have been happening, that have been moving in your life space, have been created by people who are having a white cultural experience, right? Mm-hmm. So the good doll can't actually be the white doll, right? Not all the time, maybe sometimes. But historically and systemically, we know that the white doll is not the good doll. But we have grown adults to this day who have difficulty chastising white people when they know that they've done something wrong.
Right. The goodness is not defined by skin.
And white people have an issue chastising each other, even when they know that they've done something wrong.
Which is the issue with anti-racism work that allyship should be lending itself to, but it does not. So when you have these different barriers that doesn't allow for the space to criticize the system at large.
Correct and critique and
criticize. Like, I mean, really like get into the grid of it. Like, where, it's a successful diabolical play that's taken some time and some constant conditioning. It has been a repetitious Pavlovian, process, years, decades, centuries that's taken place to indoctrinate not only just Black people, not only just people of color, but also other white people, or white people that may not be of a certain type of class status as well, because that's what tends to bring the separation within the white community. Those even with white consciousness, there is still a separation by class and structure, things of that nature that has them be like within the haves and the have-nots. But understanding that within that lies that even if they are, then their whiteness won't be the barrier to them getting whatever it is they may need that's beneficial to their basic essentials of living, right? So therein lies that piece. So then when you have these levels that have been broken down of a people of who the actual powers that be are, quote unquote, then you have this thing where you can't, as a Black person, a person of color, you can't criticize whiteness. That you have that other white people that may be too fearful by virtue. It may not be even so many words, but in action is too fearful to speak to other white people. And this generally,
they usually have conversations
tends to be
in private, but not in public.
In private also, but even so in private, it becomes a challenge because you have there's a socialization of familiarity, right? To where white people aren't as comfortable with criticizing other white people because it's like, that's my brother.
Definitely
that's
not
my
in front of Black people.
That's my family people. That's my family people. That's my family. That's my friends. These are my people, my coworkers that I confide in because there's a trusted nature in knowing I look like these people, or we share a relativity.
That's the psychology of the group dynamic,
which is something that is missing within the Black community,
right?
As far as staying on code with other.
Well, no,
Black people
what they've done was they cut across. It's still there because Black folks know,
so to speak,
when you get the nod.
You know that, right?
You know that,
vibes.
right? The vibes, right?
Right.
The vibes.
Right.
It's still there. But what happened was they cut across it with the scarcity. So it creates envy. It creates the firstness. I'm the first Black person here. I want to be the only miracle Negro in this space. Because that has happened to me 1,001 freaking times. Right? The other African person that's in the space will go behind my back to intentionally cause problems in my space to make it look like maybe I haven't done my job. Or maybe I've overlooked something, but because I'm hyper vigilant, nah, baby, you got to wake up early in the morning to pull a fast one on me. But why should I have to do that? But unfortunately, we have to do that when it comes to our people because we've been socialized into desperation, and desperate times call for desperate measures. And some of us go to great lengths to trip each other up so that we can be that miracle Negro in the space because we have unfortunately accepted a subordinate posture to whiteness. We have not stepped into our African center. Never mind all of the trinkets and things that's hanging on us. That's irrelevant.
Right.
Because all those things are short-sighted and they actually only play into the matrix. It's like your Monopoly board. When you start collecting houses and cards and little knickknacks and that. That's all that is. They actually have no value on the world landscape because squirrels don't collect things other than nuts. Right? The bird doesn't get nothing but the seed. And it supports a need and it moves on. Done. Right.
It's
so
distinguishable by nature.
That's exactly how humanity was supposed to operate in unison with humanity. So we get to look at how this society is reading African people, how it's treating us based on its socialization, and how we've been socialized into anti-Blackness right along with white folks.
Absolutely. You know, and like was going further with that anti-Blackness is like, how are you going to be able to, like, speaking of identity, with the situations that have been coming up.
Oh my God.
Lord of mercy. The situations of what that looks like so we want to talk about, right, how we socialize and identity and the propaganda around Blackness. Now we become in an age where the past 10 years and the past decade or so, it's been more and more of this understanding that, you know, Black lives, this is the idea, the rise of Black Lives Matter, and a realization in the social landscape, you know, by virtue of one of the good things that social media has been good for is highlighting certain things that regular news won't show. And case in point, the more and more brutalizations of Black people and the propaganda around that. But really, we've been seeing, you know, since with the culmination of a Rachel Dolezal, we've been seeing more and more just this past year alone of this what do you want to call it? This appropriation of Blackness to the point where in the midst of the
Blackness, they get to put on these Black behaviors.
Right, Blackness becomes a costume, becomes a mask, and becomes also a means of escape to something that's cool, right? You know, like for years we deal with
as a white person, you can do whatever you want to do. You can wear whatever costume you want to.
Right. So like you deal with like, you know, years of like Black, you know, white people tanning or like, you know, getting injections and things like that. The closer to Blackness without actually accepting actual Black people, right? And here we have this idea of assuming the identity of Blackness by virtue of hanging out at HBCUs and watching Dear White People and being the white people that the Dear White People is talking about, and taking on these personas of Blackness or people of color and ambiguousness to be accepted in this space, to kind of escape from yourself and feel like you're doing something. Well, now I'm a part of Black people, so now I can take on Black people things, and I can say Black people things, and maybe I can slip nigger in there a couple of times, or I can listen to more hip hop and it'll be okay. Whatever the reasoning is, at the end of the day, we have this being a reality, and then these people rising up into leadership. Even if you look at them and say like, this person's blatantly not Black. But it's the idea that's still a back of mind sociology around seeing of lighter, complexion or of this lighter mindset. Like this person, we'll follow more of what they're saying because they may be lighter, or there might be something.
But there's something
subscribing to.
There's something
to that.
Because a lot of our leadership at one point, you know, which is why I've debunked the whole concept of the talented 10th, you know, because I went through the process of looking at what we used to do, how we did it so that we could create a viable solution for what we need to do moving forward. And I came to that whole concept of the talented 10th. You know, that talented 10th generally was the lighter skinned Africans who, by virtue of being lighter skinned, somebody's grandmother was raped or manipulated. Or if you want to really want to look at it from a different lens, if you white-centered consciousness said that these people were animals, then you're actually having sex with your animals. That's a whole nother conversation. We'll put a pushpin right there. But we know that these African women were actually women, right? We know that they were actually mothers and leaders and healers and teachers and all that good stuff. But from their concepts, they weren't. Let's look at one of our presidents, Thomas Jefferson, who had a wall built into his bedroom to house a 12-year-old. They try to say that, you know, she was 14 when she first had a child.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Regardless, he bricked a wall into his bedroom to have access to house this child that he, as a grown man over 40 years old, could have her whenever he wanted to have this child.
She was 20,
the whole concept of sexualizing the African and using the African as a utility instead of a human. So it's going to take a lot of work. So this is why I have to tell the African that when you started to fortify your own mind, you get to be the authority in the space, right? You, first of all, you get to walk in. And let me tell you what, you know, African and the whole Black woman, angry Black woman, and trying to make you, you know, succumb to, well, you know, you can't say too much and don't talk too loud and, you know, don't use that type of tone. I could care less because you know something, it doesn't matter what you say. The moment you have a question or a conversation that's contrary to what whiteness says, you're already combative. You're already combative. Doesn't matter what tone you use. Doesn't matter how many smiles you have. It doesn't really matter. Because immediately, the fact that you're being checked, this white person is not going to appreciate being checked by you. So once you check them, it's only a matter of time. You can start counting the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's whiteness. That's whiteness not dealing with their shit. And see, Africans, y'all not dealing with y'all shit neither.
Right.
But y'all are closer to the narrative more than white people because white people have never had a reason to assess their circumstance. The whole entire system, including black people, African people, have been celebrating whiteness, murderers, killers, pillagers. Like you've been celebrating with white people because the white folks been celebrating Christopher Columbus for this long.
Mm-hmm.
Italians thought that was cool to celebrate this man. He's been a killer, pillager, raper, but African people have been socialized and you've been celebrating this. It's sadistic, right?
It's masochistic.
It's masochistic and sadistic from their perspective, masochistic on your perspective.
Exactly.
Two different narratives, same situation. So this is why you have to look from your African-centric prism at the circumstance so that you can divulge, you can create a system or a strategy for your own greatest good because you've been celebrating these things. And when you start to check in with white folks, they're not checking in with their narrative. You know, it's a long journey. So you are actually essentially, no matter how much awakening you are, you're farther along than they are. It is what it is. You're way farther along than they are. I don't care how many, listen, trust me, try not to let the smoke and mirrors get to you. I don't care how much decorations they got on them and how many trophies and how many people clap for them. It doesn't really matter. When it comes to this humanity conversation, they have been socialized into anti-blackness 99.9% of the time. When they're cordial with you, that's strictly a professional relationship. That's cordial. Because you know why I'm looking at that? I'm looking at two sides of the coin. I'm looking at how defunct African people who have been socialized into their own anti-blackness. I'm looking at the gravity of African people's anti-blackness. The flip side of that coin has to be as bad because you're talking about balance here. So if it's as bad on this end, it has to be at least as bad on this end. And that's basically right here. You talking about this? How are you balancing the scales? Two sides of the same coin. So when you're looking at this, you know what you can assess the landscape that you're dealing with. And how do you mechanize this in your daily living and walking? It's a radiation of energy. And it's going to take critical mass. Because me alone, let me tell you, I have my back up against the wall on a regular basis. Like, my head be on swivel. Because there's no protection. The village is not here. I'm clear. But the village is not here backing me up. I'm here to tell you. We got too much things going on. And because the few of us that are placed in spaces that are doing the work, they maintain, the matrix maintains what? Imbalance. There's not enough. And based on sheer mathematics, the numbers, that's the bottom line. So we got to think strategically. We got to get out of our we have to get out of our emotional connection to the madness, and we have to get into the strategy. And it's not, and we listen to the video, African people as childlike. We make decisions, we make political decisions. Shahrazad Ali said, black folks think they can just dislike something. They don't like how it sounds, they just dismiss it. That don't make it not true. That means you just don't like it. That don't make it none less true. It's still true. African people suffer from some of the worst cases of anti-blackness. Facts. And the manifestation of our anti-blackness shows up in ways that are impeding our unity conversation. So for us to get to our unity community conversation in an authentic way, stop rhetoricing me because I can see you thinking and your behavior. I can see you thinking in anti-blackness, although your mouth is saying something else. You heard, African? You hear that? I can see you thinking in anti-blackness. Your behavior is contradicting your rhetoric. You saying it, but your actions are something else. Because community and unity looks a certain way.
Right.
There are steps that are made to create community and unity. We know what those look like. What we're doing is something else. So we got to check in with ourselves so that we can bring ourselves into integrity. So we can create the outcomes that we want to create. Because what we're doing right now is not it. And we're putting too much weight on the few individuals and spaces and places that are doing the work. The few places and spaces that are doing the work, you know what everybody else does? They stick and move. They come and grab and run. Those things do not contribute to unity and community. Mm-hmm. So you want to understand how the police got this behavior? The Matrix programmed this way. We're going to have to program them a different way. Because you know something? Police officers are regular everyday citizens. They're not at the top echelon. They're not a part of the shadow government. They're everyday citizens. There's something to, and it's more than just hatred. Oh, those white nationalists, they're hating black people. No, because they are a part of the situation too. They're being manipulated just like black folks are being manipulated. They're being miseducated because it would have been very simple to change the whole narrative of white nationalists by telling American history the way it should have been told. And having other white people teach other white people the truth in American history. That would have changed that whole narrative. They might have still disliked us, but they would have had to have found another reason to dislike us, other than the color of our skin, other than our lack of humanity, our animalistic, they're beasts, they're rape the women, they're dishonorable people. That's not true. African people are not inherently dishonorable people. That's madness. And for those of us who behave as such, we've been socialized as such.
Absolutely. I wanted to share a couple of things. Once again from the brother Kwame Ture. He said it's a little excerpt here. I don't know about the book is over there, but he spoke particularly in regards to just how we're relating to this whole structure, right? Like he says, for one thing, it will be seen that the black man's alienation is not an individual question. It is a question of social diagnostics. The Negro problem does not resolve itself into the problem of individual Negroes living among white men, but rather of Negroes as a class that is exploited, enslaved, and despised by the colonialist capitalist society, which only accidentally is white. But since it is accidentally white, that's what we talk about, white Western society. And that's what we get to ingrain ourselves in, is what white Western society has created for the idea and the manifestation of the black man. When you get the idea of the Negropian and things like that. Like, we want to look at how we're socialized into really being what's going on around us within whiteness and how that's been shaped. So I just wanted to share that particular bit of piece.
Well, we listened to the Rhodes. Remember the Rhodes the other day?
Yeah,
Cecil Rhodes.
Right. Yeah.
The whole concept of Cecil Rhodes creating
scholar,
this
Rhodesia, which is what we know as Rhodesia, named after him, right? And this idea of defining. He talks a lot about defining and like who gets to define, the mastery of the definition, and defining what's right and what's civilization. That's what actually was further on what stemmed off to that. A particular excerpt was like, what defines civilization? Who gets to define it? Western civilization, in turn, basically saying that it is civilized, in which case other places are not civilized. So it's up to Western civilization, or the white man's burden per se, to civilize the rest of the world.
The white man's burden.
Right. And then this idea of Rhodesia, named Cecil Rhodes or what have you, that he gets to define how Zimbabwe gets to be, and what rules and laws Zimbabwe gets to follow. The African people that have already been here.
As if he can put his fork someplace and take over someplace where people already was.
As if they're magically been discovered. Like, oh, I discovered you. The idea of Christopher Columbus. Here, the people are already here. I discovered you. So let me kill you off and then shape this the way I want to, because I discovered you, because you were looking to be discovered, and you need to be civilized, you savage beasts. These and then these people are getting their names etched in history to be the narratives of what is good and what is right, and how do you properly civilize other peoples by taking them power and pillage. See what do you say?
Africa is still lying ready for us. It is our duty to take it. It is our duty to seize every opportunity of acquiring more territory. And we should keep this one idea steadily before our eyes, that more territory simply means more of the Anglo-Saxon race, more of the best of the most human, most honorable race the world possesses.
That was a book. Usually, I see these memes or quotes. Is usually like supposed to be some type of remotely good quote. Like, what is this? This is
what he said. They can't just listen. They can't post the good stuff. Like, this is the AZ quotes. It's an unobjective post.
Okay, fair.
It just posts what they said. At the end of the day, these are some of the quotes that he's known for, and this one in particular. And then he also says, let me give you another one. I contend that we are the first race in the world, and that the more of the world we inhabit, the better it is, and the human race. If there be a God for the human race, if there be a God, I think that what he would like me to do is paint as much of the map of Africa British red as possible.
Yeah, it is.
No. I just want to make sure that you're clear. This is the psychosis, and this is someone that is celebrated inside of white-centered consciousness. White people, Rhodes Scholars, research institutes. This is real life. And see, when you understand leadership, you understand that a mission is a part of white structure. This is how white-centered structure structures things. There must be a mission and a vision. This is the mission, and the vision is white as the center of the universe, and we're going to paint Africa as red as possible. Our mission is to take over Africa. Is there for us. We should go get it.
We should.
And
we
our
have a
vision
right to it.
is to paint everything British red. You're an Englishman. This is his rhetoric.
But you're stupid because you don't know our language that we just came and gave to you 2 seconds ago. So now
You're
we must
dumb.
brutalize you and must kill off your people that don't understand and want to abide by our laws.
So this is the narrative that we understand when we're talking about structuring things. And this is why it's understood that the greatest good of the African is fundamentally at odds with white-centered consciousness. There's no way around it. There's no way to mix oil and vinegar. There's no way, right? So there is no reset for this madness because this is a demonstration of white-centered consciousness madness. In fact, they continue to create these laws and write these little, amendments, trying to, they make a compromise in such a way, but they never lose anything in the compromise. They always maintain power because I'm going to say that you can vote. We're going to say that we're going to give you some civil rights, but we still run things and we can choose whether or not we're going to allow you to vote and participate or not. Because maybe we don't feel like playing with y'all no more. Maybe we don't need you all no more. See, I also come from my professional landscape, which is learning and development. So from my professional landscape, we're talking about labor relations and workforce development. African, we're in the digital era. And for the past 20 years, and this is a dot, when I told you guys 3 years ago that we were in a burning house, that our house was on fire, African. Remember those posts? Hey, African, our house is on fire. We got things to check in on. Now we're at a point where the corona has now preempted. So this is what white-centered consciousness does. It creates this huge wave so that no one is prepared for it but them. Nobody was prepared for this huge wave. It comes crashing down and everybody else is in a panic. And now they get to stay on the mound and create order. And the order that's going to be created is not going to be in your best interest. As I've said to us as Africans, we could have created this wave for us. And everybody else would have had to adjust to it. But instead, everybody was interested in finding themselves a better seat in the master's house. So we're going to move this corner right now. There was a deficit in science STEM, right? Remember, there's been a push for the past 20 years for STEM.
Peace and blessings, Brother Reed. Thank you for joining us.
There's been a push for everyone to join, to train our youth up in STEM. We still don't have enough youth in the STEM programs that are turning out the genius that we need to fortify a society, a community. But guess what? The matrix is still in motion. The wealth gap is still this big. African household wealth gap is still less than 10%. And people of white-centered consciousness, not meritocratic though, but just because white-centered consciousness has a narrative in the matrix. So their incomes are like up here. New York said it was 171 to 11 something in New York, right? New York. So we want to take in consideration that right there. Because right now we're in the digital era and we needed STEM. So for the past 20 years, our kids have been annoyed with going to school. Teachers have of poor quality.
The turd,
have been getting played for the master's degree, the free master's degree through the boards of education. And they hadn't been fortifying our youth with African-centered values. Because a whole lot of other stuff in the social landscape and acceptance and different things and names and came into the space. And now you can't whoop your children. I don't believe in whooping kids as a default. So this is listen, we digress a little bit. Create the offshoot from our concept of being socialized by the Matrix into anti-Blackness, and how anti-Blackness has been socialized and the propaganda has been socialized into white-centered consciousness. And now our condition where we find ourselves in this corona experience as a result of our socialization, our behaviors, all of these things are interconnected. So STEM was the agenda. We moved from the agricultural to the industrial to the technological. Now we're in the digital. We needed STEM as our foundation. It is not our foundation. The 90% of our youth today all want to become YouTube stars, and they're clowning the jester, just like we said in the video. The default socialization has set all, including grown people, into the cooning and clowning. The cooning and clowning. If I was cooning and clowning, if I was twerking and throwing my butt up in the camera, I could get 4,000 or 5,000 likes every day. Okay. I have people paying attention to me every day, all day. They would love to see me doing that foolishness. Let me fall off. Let me momentarily lose my mind right quick. It'll never happen.
That jump.
It'll never happen. I don't have to sell out like that. I don't have to sell myself out like that. And I definitely don't have to sell out my ancestors. Shirley Chisholm said unbossed and unbought. I
wanted to share something as well. In regards to this is on my own reflection and just takeaway on what Brother Toure was talking about, integration or what have you, which lends itself to this, is that, he said integration is a subterfuge for the maintenance of white supremacy, right? And basically you speak on integration as essentially a means of control in order to succeed, in order to succeed, Blackness or Black people must be integrated into a whiteness or white institutions, i.e. schools and neighborhoods, within a collective or select few, which further reinforces the idea of Darwinism, survival of the fittest, right? Within our communities get to deal with this as a means of controlling Blackness, that where Blackness is seen as inferior and whiteness is seen as superior, as a goal of excellence for Blacks to reach. Those that can get into those schools were deemed successful, for instance, whereas the other 94% of the Black community, those youths, remain in spaces of poverty and unimproved schools conditions for the Black schools that existed around them. And really, if you want to look at what integration is, there's a lot of us that look at this idea of integrating into the society and being accepted even now, like is still a good thing. Surprise, it's not. An illusion of inclusion has not been successful for us in that it actually has ended up being a one-sided situation, right? True integration would be where, for instance, white people would choose to engage in Black spaces or in Black communities. I mean, other than these posers that have been jumping in recently, that's not quite it. But in including these spaces and Black communities within the same coexisting ideologies as Black people integrating or engaging into their and consuming what's in their communities, right? Black or white or colored groups, wherever across the spectrum, will be engaging in different cultures and methodologies and educations as the overall image of what humanity looks like. It's us coexisting within spaces where it doesn't matter who's what's the product, what's there, what's available, is humans existing to other humans. So when we look at what integration is, if you really examine it, we're not in that space at all. We're in a space where we've been conditioned into we are being tolerated by whiteness. We're being tolerated
temporarily until they figure out what to do with us. Because
they figure out what to do, and that's really how it's treated, right? Like, what do you hear? What do you? Oh,
go ahead.
Oh no, but yeah, really, it's kind of like an only matter of time thing. Well, this is what we're going to do for now. Fine, you can come into our spaces, but we're not going to deal with anything you have going on. So while we've been socialized to just accept that as the piecemeal we've made it, where we're being accepted into their spaces. What about our spaces? What about our spaces that are lacking funding and lacking the proper care and lacking the proper organizations and things to combat and criminality and violence that takes place in our communities, to combat these things, like make it a balanced effort at humanity across all fronts.
No, you're looking at that's a conversation around what do we believe a society is. Remember, a society for African people is something different than it is for white-centered consciousness. What a society looks like when you start talking about healthcare and education, all of those things, to white-centered consciousness, because they've been socialized into this concept of grab. If they have to give something, they feel like they're losing something. If they have to give something, first of all, you're not giving anything. It's bad in a society to have slums, to have ghettos.
It's not good.
But who cares if we got ghettos, because we stuck those people in those ghettos. And who cares about them? We're going to get rid of them anyway. We don't even like them. They're useless. They're shiftless. They're over-sexualized. They're welfare queens. They're leaning on the system. They don't make any contributions to society. This is what they've been socialized into. And if you happen to be a rare occasion like myself, and I run into people who have had a white culture experience on a regular basis, who used to say things to me like, "Oh my God, you speak so well. Why do you do this?" Or "You speak so well. Oh my God, you're so incredible." You're like, really? Fortunately for me, and the majority of these Africans who are fighting their way out of the space, who are combating these narratives, right? African people are trying to contortion themselves to fit into white spaces, into white narratives, right? Because I went through that phase for a time. Because remember, my grandmother's her only thought was, get out of here, get a good job, go to school, get a good job, buy a big house. That's all she wanted to do. She didn't want to talk about back in olden times. She didn't want to talk about that. So I have younger siblings who don't know anything about olden times. And olden times was good information for me.
Actually, yeah.
The olden times is the stuff that helped me get through.
Need to know.
Because I'm glad I had a choice to make, that I was able to source something else. Because what was coming up was not coming up good for me.
Right. And without knowledge of where that's coming from, because that's what infuses our growth, then we're left in the dark. And that's even for the young white kids too. If their parents are hiding a certain type of way that the history is taking place, then they don't know why they may be acting a certain way, why there may be some innate like back in the mind hatred or whatever for their black, or jealousy for their black friend or whatever, that they think it's cool to have the black friend. And I'm realizing that a lot of their actions are rooted in anti-blackness.
Yes.
Wearing hip hop, like I said,
feeling like African people are a burden to the system. First of all, in African people, there is no such thing as, if people are without, we'll make a way for them. That doesn't occur in most spaces in white centered consciousness. I'm not concerned with religion and these white people from over here, those white people from over there, those white people from Europe, those white people from Africa, those white people from Australia, because the white people in Australia are shitty as hell to the indigenous in Australia right now.
The Aboriginals are getting dirt.
The Aboriginals are getting the shits right now. Hear this. I'm just saying. So I'm not concerned with any of those subs, because they don't in my what I'm looking at right here doesn't matter. I'm not concerned with any of the subs. I'm concerned with the reality that people don't want to share. And when you start talking about sharing, they say it's socialism. And when you say socialism or communism or anything about that, all of these folks get up in arms. That's language that cues them into hypervigilance. Watch out. Watch your purse. They coming for your purse. They get nervous. They get all antsy and anxiety starts showing. They coming for your purse. They coming for your children. They coming for your future. There's no reality where there's a shared space when it comes to white-centered consciousness where all people work together in harmony.
And actually, it further lends itself to division and within other cultures. Like, for instance, like we talk about the census, where Egyptians get to, on the line for Egyptians, get to strike off Egyptian /white / whatever the case may be, like a socialization or identification with whiteness. Look in Brazil, you have like these staunch racism that still exists in Brazil, where like the lighter skinned Brazilians is this identification with whiteness itself. Where dark skinned Brazilians is to get the shits. Get the shits. Racism is prevalent. Racism in North Africa, Tunisia, and all these places, like that, even of those of Arab descent, or what you want to call it, that socialization, the lighter skin, they are not like associating themselves or exhibiting blatant anti-blackness to the darker skinned Arabs, sand niggers and things of that nature. Yes. That's something that still exists. So yes, it's very much a staunch socialization around color being the dividing line of how someone should be treated. So why would we think we'd be any different just because we have an accolade or a degree, or like we got $100 million in the bank? That's going to be gone in an instant if you're not willing to play ball with what the Matrix has to offer.
Yeah, there's something to be said about this, guys. There's an extended conversation to be had.
Absolutely.
And it continues, and it's about reflection. It's really important that we make an authentic assessment, because not making an authentic assessment, like I said, shouts out to the blissfully ignorant. Like, at the end of the day, you being blissfully ignorant doesn't give you a get out of jail free card. If the hammer come down, you're not gonna miss nobody. And what's unfortunate about you is you won't even see it coming. Somebody should say run. You're gonna be standing there waiting on instructions. You better run. You better get it together, African. You better mount up, and you better fortify. Hear this. This is our world. Everyone needs to work together and have a harmonious conversation if possible. If not, the African in the Matrix checks in and the African in the Matrix checks out. Because it's supposed to be about what's in the interest of what's in the best interest of the African.
Absolutely.
Because let me tell you what, Cecil Rhodes made sure that conversation that he was having about being an Englishman did not take anything into consideration about what would have been good for the Africans that were there when they got there. They were not even an issue. They were not of no consequence. Just go on there and wipe them all out. They're savages anyway. Massive graves in the Congo. Lying about this history. So at this point, the best way to hide something is in plain sight. So all of this information today is available to you, and you don't even know what to do with this information. That's what really boggles me. That's what really hurts my heart and me, is the fact that we have this information available to us, and we're still not making it a practice of thinking about what to do to mechanize this information for our best interests. Everybody's on the mic talking about something. What are you saying? We did this already. We came over here, 1865, Reconstruction. We bought land. We shared money together. We did all of those things already. We've already did that stuff already. We've done it more than once. They took Seneca Village. They redlined Africans. Mm-hmm. The Africans bought houses. They came in with subprime loans. 2009, 2008, they took them all back. We've done this already. Science says you make an assessment of your historical outcomes, you assess them, and then you assess the unknowns, which is your opposition. You make strategy to assess what your opposition's reaction is going to be to your various strategies. And that's how you decide what's the best course of action. African, if you're not thinking like that, you lazy brain. And you've been socialized into being lazy brained. Then there are some of us that know this, and we're not teaching others of us how to not be lazy brained. This is why you're not thinking in the 15, 25 different slots that you should be thinking in. Your brain is moving a little slower than normal. They've been giving us this food. They've been messing with the water. They've been messing with the air. They've been giving us these injections.
Literally all of the natural.
All of the above. African. They gave you a food chart, and half of what's on there you shouldn't even be eating.
Listen, it's really crazy to think about.
Come on, folks.
The past few years, particularly, has been just an assessment of just looking at all the things over the years that we've been told is like, this is good for you. That's been actual shit.
For the African, it's been bad for you.
It's literally been the opposite. Literally, it's been actually the opposite of what it should be doing for you.
It's been bad for you, African.
And we've been socialized to just make sense of that and make do with it. Well, this is right.
We'll just make
It's not. It's actually not. It's actually destroying you every single day. Whether it's foods, whether it's products, whether it's spending money on frivolous, products and things of that nature. All these things that exist in the space that actually aren't good for us, or actually waste our time or help us deviate from our pathway of becoming closer to ourselves, closer to Africans, closer to our village. That's all been put into play in one way or the other, whether we like to believe it or not. No matter how subtle. Exactly. I got this car, I got this thing. Yeah, but do you realize what you had to do to get it, to even say what?
So they had to sell out.
Now is depreciating in value, whatever it is you bought, and it won't serve anything for you. So now what? You have no property. You own nothing. And even the property you do own, whatever it is, you may flip it and give it away to somebody else. Your grandparents put a place that they've owned for decades has been in the family. You sold it for a coin that you're going to spend up
and run out because you have no money management.
And there was no plan for the money in the first place other than to have money.
All the time, African. Sadly, it happens all the time, and we've been selling out short-sighted. That's what you call immature processing.
Long game.
Those behaviors.
You got to be long
those behaviors are when they say we've been socialized into childlike actions and behaviors. That's it. That's it. We want to identify it. Right? Running down the street, playing the music all loud, skirting and spinning your wheels and burning up rubber and being seen at the light and clowning and carrying on and jumping out of cars and harassing people and talking crazy. Some of the bad things that we do in our community are some of are some of the worst manifestations of immaturity. It is insane, low vibration.
Looking for validation
and we applaud this behavior. We're happy, we enjoy it, African. There's Jerry Springer. They flooded the TV for 20 years of just socializing bad behavior as a social norm. And we ate it up. You are not the father. We're gonna celebrate promiscuity. We're gonna celebrate women out here having babies from men and don't know who the fathers of these babies are. This is celebratory.
To the point where Jerry Springer, like, he was just sick of it. He was like, all right,
this is nauseating.
Whatever, it's my coin.
Right? The judge. We got all the judge shows. We got all the talk shows, family. Like, this is what's happening with us. This is what happened with us. This is how they exploited our ignorance. How the social, the hammer just came down more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And the level is just so low that we just, like, we so low, we can't even see our way up right now. We is French. Hear this. We are only as strong as our weakest link. So that African that's doing that foolishness on that TV, you making fun of her, she belongs to us. She's a manifestation of our collective dysfunction. His behavior, black on black crime, we got black folks love to run up and down here screaming about black on black crime, yet they are not doing anything to change black on black crime. Because black on black crime, when Malcolm X walked the streets of Harlem, they was dealing with that black on black crime. What did they do then to deal with black on black crime? What did the Black Panthers do to deal with black on black crime? It worked. Do it again. Do it again. Don't worry about the police. You police us. We police ourselves. We bring back standards in our communities. We don't need police to come into our communities because the dope dealing kid, the one that's out there slinging dope, slinging guns and running around here doing all kind of foolishness, that's somebody's nephew. Y'all know who nephew that is. Y'all know who grandson that is. Why y'all ain't checking with him? Why y'all ain't checking with them? We ain't got nothing for them. Well, once we get them out the street, what we gonna do with them? Your priorities are out of order. They shouldn't have to be in the street to do what? To buy Pampers? They in the street to buy gold teeth, to get grills? What you need with a grill? You can't read. What you need with rims? You ain't doing nothing but riding within this 10-block radius. Where you going? Family, we got our priorities jacked up. And these individuals, they belong to us. So I don't care how much they are people. They belong to us. We only as strong as our weakest link. So all of y'all who glad y'all got out, who got y'all come up and came out and went, was the first one, y'all college graduate degree in your family, the first one to go to a Ivy League college, to go be miseducated and hollowed out by white center consciousness institutions. Good luck with that. Go ahead, girl. You did your thing. Them folks are still ours. You still from that hood. That's your community. And you know what they need. So they don't need no freaking drum line. That's not going to stop these folks from toting guns. You better get down there and tell them the truth.
And you didn't save yourself by doing so. You actually put yourself in a world of more struggle for yourself than you like to believe. And then you have to choose in to be part of that community of the willfully ignorant just to keep your peace. But is it really peace? If knowing that now you stepped out of the hood and you stepped into a place where you have to tap dance and have to force yourself to be to code switch, which that thing came around as ridiculous to me. You have to code switch to be with whiteness. Knowing within your heart where the blackness lies. And just to be clear, we're not saying blackness is the ghetto. No, we're saying that black people have been relegated together to the ghettos by virtue of what the societal design has been. We've been dumped and socialized into. But be that as it may, our people are there. There's a lot of our people there. You may have made it out, but they haven't. And I don't win unless you win. Period. Neff doesn't win unless we win.
We all win or we all lose.
You don't come out of a spot and then be like, all right, peace out, deuces.
Injustice anywhere, injustice everywhere.
Exactly. And to be silent to those injustices that takes place, that means you taking the side of the oppressor. So then what do? You don't go to college like, for me, it's like I was born and raised in the hood. Born and raised in the projects in Brownsville, the quote unquote the most dangerous place in Brooklyn, the boogeyman of Brooklyn. Fuck you. That was
projects
home.
Are mostly men.
That was home to me.
Heavy aggression.
You know why? Because you know why? Because there is a possibility in choice, and the issue is that a lot of our people in these conditions and these circumstances that they were not created on by them, though unfortunately because of those circumstances and onus they've taken up, that they may continue to perpetuate what takes place. But that's not of theirs to bear. That's what's they've been conditioned into.
It's
be that as it may. At the end of the day, there's still a duty to the people to give in order to receive what the real residuals of the earth has to offer, right? It is not for me to say I can go and graduate from college or what have you, and then just leave the ghetto and never be heard from again. No, I get to go back regularly. I get to support and see wherever possible. I get to bring a program back. I get to bring an initiative back, however I possibly can, which has been my consistent want and focus the past few years, to try to see what's possible and work in what's possible to create something back in that community or communities like it. Even here in Newark, wherever we are, it doesn't matter because these communities exist nationally. Our people are here nationally. So
these are our people.
So despite me being born an only child, my brother exists in Brownsville. My brother exists over here in Newark, in South Ward. My brother exists over there in Compton. My brother exists in every aspect and every crevice that exists in this nation here. So wherever I am, I have a duty to be with my brother in that particular way. Period. Same thing with Neff. Oh, we own the land by virtue of us being here, but it is our duty to take back the land.
African is indigenous to the planet.
Exactly.
And African is indigenous to the planet. Wherever you go, you're indigenous to that planet.
Period.
You grew right out of the soil.
No matter where.
You grew right out the soil, African. You better go ahead and get some.
African, don't be scared of your people. Love on your people. Love on your people. You should be concerned for them. Be scared for them if you're going to be scared, but don't be scared of your people because they've been conditioned into a space that they're scared of themselves. And out of fear comes a reaction. And some backed against the wall, you do some stuff, right? And a lot of people are backed against the wall right now.
Go on in there reaching for your people, man. Stop
pull them out.
And you're not hiding nothing.
Or break down that wall and let's make some more possibilities.
You got a little leg up for these folks. They done gave you a little space. Trust me, if they decide to kick your butt, 2008, 2009, I got friends right now making 6 figures. They never made that salary again. You African. You get your hook up, you might get your leg up, but you know something? You may not get that same leg up again. And if you do, what you gonna have to do to get it? Because we don't live in a meritocratic space.
You gotta do
it's not meritocratic.
Something strange for some change.
Do a little strange for a piece of change.
Something strange for some change.
Yeah, you gotta do a little something strange for a little piece of change. Trust me. And the Matrix ensures. I got narratives.
What are you gonna do?
Long list of folks.
Why don't you get down on the knees?
Okay.
Whatever that looks like to the Matrix. That's
Kerry Washington was all up in the utility shed with the white president giving up the nappy dugout. I'm just saying.
The nappy dugout.
Now, I went back to the 90s with that one.
You said the nappy dugout.
Listen, family, we ain't kidding. We're not fooling around in here with y'all. Listen, you know what time it is, family. Stop it. Y'all know what time it is. Do you know what time it is? Let's keep it real.
Absolutely so.
Let's keep it real. Let's break some chains, family. Let's build together, united.
Be clear of where you stand in this matrix.
Just know where you at.
No longer, I implore you to no longer own aloofness about your experience or your social conditioning. Get rid of the code switching. Get rid of the willingness to identify yourself under whiteness to appease whiteness. Appease yourself by being yourself and be true to who you are and what makes sense for you. And if you want more answers, ask those questions and go searching for those answers and do the work. Do the work necessary for you. And those answers are not going to come from the oppressive state. The oppressor is not going to give you the tools to undo what the oppressor has done. You're insane if you think so. Black power lies within the family. Black identity lies within understanding and the knowledge of the family and the history that the family holds. Don't ever think otherwise. So.
And we get to nurture ourselves, and we get to do it lovingly. So we get to point out these things that are not working for us, African. But we get to address them lovingly, and we get to start. And we know that there's not really a way to mechanize this stuff in the matrix. Mm-hmm. This is why it's important that you start to strategize your way out of the matrix. Be prepared to clock out. The plan is to be prepared to clock out because we don't have time to wait for the matrix to adjust itself to us. We don't have time for that. We've already wasted enough time. We need to start laying the bricks. If we don't create it in the next, several decades, then we need to create the momentum to have the outcomes occur. Cecil Rhodes wasn't talking for himself. He was speaking for 100. He was speaking for 100 years, 15, 20 generations ahead. African. Some of us be thinking about next week. Some of us not even thinking about the turn of events that has happened during COVID. We so busy worried about President Trump and all of the other foolishness, we have lost sight of what's important. African, right here and before our faces. If the wealth gap is this wide, then they're saying that the bulk of African people are 42 to 50 million Africans in America. The great majority of them are working entry-level positions. Half of these places are closing down. Where are you going to work? Where are these people going? Where are our people going? What's next for us? You making your $2. Some of these jobs are obsoleting. They're automating. People are working from home, African. This is the biggest social experiment you ever seen. And it's so diabolical that it's happening on 15 different levels right now. Simultaneously, it's happening right now. We are programming AI. We're programming artificial intelligence. We are lab rats right now. If you didn't see The Social Dilemma on Netflix, get into your life.
Right.
Watch The Social Dilemma, right, you and your children.
For those that need another framework, for those that don't follow Soundbytes or what have you, and what we've been talking about.
Come on, family.
Go check out The Social Dilemma and see what that landscape looks like, how that's been shaped for social media and the psychosis around it, the addictive nature, the social programming that's taking place. So when you have children, youth brought up within that world, that guess what type of reality is going to be shaped for them? Gen X and the older millennials or what have you, even some of the younger millennials are the last generation, maybe would say the 80s or so, that are on the borderline between what was before the internet, before the main internet,
before Google,
yeah, there we go, before Google, to give a good reference, and after. We're on the cusp of two generations that really understands the social landscape that we're in. To be born within one side or the other is to have to it's up to us to bridge the gap, those that exist in that framework, and understand that there's something taking place that needs to be assessed. So if you need something to look at, watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix, from all those people that work at these organizations like Facebook and YouTube and Google and Twitter, that at the day's end don't have their kids on any of these platforms because what they intended didn't turn out to be what they intended today.
And guess what they said, which what happens in most things that they show that they give to the public. It's all about profits. They had no idea what has occurred would occur.
Right.
It grew and it addressed it on its own.
Yeah.
It literally did this on its own. And it said that we didn't know this was going to happen. And now it's here. And now it has to be adjusted. And now the social landscape, the very human interactions have completely been shifted and changed. You want to watch it. They talk about mental health issues in our youth.
Yeah.
And, I was really moved about 3 or 4 years ago. A young girl, Feliciano was her last name, on the LIRR, gave her cell phone to her friend and just fell in front of the oncoming train. 15 years old. Foster child. Myself coming out of the foster care system. That suicide was intense because she had sex with a football player who recorded her and showed it to the school. And she was so embarrassed that she committed suicide at 15. And why would she give herself sexually to a man? I think they said that it was a train. It was more than one of the football players, and they recorded it and shared it. And what would make these youth do this to this girl? What will make this girl do this to herself? Right? But we got to understand what our kids are under right now and what they're so fragile right now because they have not built up any resistance, and they will go to whatever shelter is available to them. And that was by design. They've taken the shelter away from mom home, Stella got her groove back, then inject federally traded prisons that states say we're going to keep the shelves stocked, small towns getting private prisons, and those jobs coming to those communities, those rural communities. Think about this, African. You on your one journey and driving your one little car, and that's all that's there for you. You doing one of these numbers. But life does not function like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is an illusion. Everything is connected.
I truly implore you, if you are, or if you know someone who is millennial, Gen Xer, Congo boomer, what have you, to infuse now more than ever the youth of the future, because they will grow up with no knowledge of, or very little knowledge of, what they had to go through to get to where they are. Because there are those that are subscribed to the idea that slavery helped, that they will be living in huts, that this is what they've expressed. This is what some of the youth is coming away with. There's definitely some intelligent youth out there that have a understanding or want to learn more. But it is up to us and the older generation to infuse them, right? If they and a lot of times the way they may act may be out of a want for something more, a want to be loved in a certain type of way that they're not seeing. Right now they're being loved by the internet, and that doesn't work. We need to get in this space to be with the youth as much as possible. Let them know what has existed before them, so they can know what's ahead of them.
And let those youth know the facts.
It's a relay race.
World was going on before white people entered Africa.
Mm-hmm.
A whole civilization migrating around the planet was occurring for African people long before the European fell on Africa, invaded Africa. Because Plymouth Rock didn't fall on us. We didn't fall on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock fell on us. We didn't ask to be here. We didn't ask to come here and be exploited in this way. This was of someone's doing. People make things happen, and people don't make things happen. Let your children know what they should be looking out for.
Yes.
Let them know, caution them. Stop talking this foolishness. We don't see color.
Ugh.
Stop telling your children that foolishness. Because these folks do not teach that to their children.
And that's not for you to take up, African. That's actually not for you to take up. The whole "I don't see color" thing. No,
you see color, because you need to be clear of your experiences.
It is important. We'll wrap up, but it's important for us to understand how that in itself, to take on the onus of that particular narrative, erases culture. It erases you as an African. It erases culture. It erases your journey and your plight. To accept that is a narrative that others in your face are accepting. Because that means that lends itself to them not thinking you matter. That means themselves to thinking that your plight and what you've gone through, what your people have gone through, doesn't matter to who you are now. When actually all of it does. Black, white, Asian, whatever, it matters. Right? There's no such thing as I don't see color doesn't make you less racist. It actually makes you more dismissive of race and dismissive of other people, and actually more racist and more disconnected. If we anything, we don't need disconnection. Now more than we need more connection with each other from a humanity perspective, right? So don't own that. Don't believe the hype and what people think that is. What one race, the human race, and all that type of stuff. Yeah, but you have to act in it and the belief of what that means. Boom. That means you have to realize that there's some things that need to be taken care of first for humanity to actually exist. Because we're not living in a space of humanity at all with each other. Globally right now, it's fucking insane, right? But particularly with blackness, we are not done at all with our healing. We're not done on our journey of understanding self. And some of that, even in the break of trying to get to our space of healing and get into certain spaces, we allow those that benefit from the structure, the white supremacist structure and the oppressive system, the benefit, whether they believe to or not, in those spaces. And when they're in those spaces, unintentionally, perhaps subconsciously, they become the ones that take up the space, and now healing has been halted. We cannot have this anymore.
They do that all the time, and it's inadvertent. It's inadvertent.
It has your healing space is about you, and you also pertains to you as the village, because the village needs healing. The village heals through the village.
Come on, village.
The village heals through the village. There's no siloed healing. You don't just heal by yourself, because you need reflection. How can you bounce off and know what's happening if you don't have somebody else giving you objective reflection and seeing? Sawubona, I see you.
I see into you.
Ubuntu.
I am because we are.
Exactly. But none of that exists if you're talking about I don't see color. I'm colorblind.
Your strength.
You
got to stop thinking white-centered consciousness. You have to stop thinking through white prism. Just know that you've been socialized into anti-blackness. Remember, Jane Elliott told white folks, she's a whole white scholar. She said, if you grew up in this society and you're not a racist, you're a miracle. Because everything about this society socializes white folks to be racist. Period. If you're celebrating Leopold, you got to be a racist. You got to be a racist to be celebrating Christopher Columbus. And you did it so subtly that it seemed like it was nice and it was okay to do. It was normalized as something nice and fun. See, that's what happened. And that's how they look at it. Mm-hmm. They don't look at it as Christopher Columbus was a murderer. He came in, he killed people. He was a pirate. He stole other Africans and brought them to this country. He doesn't look at it like that. They don't see it that way. See, so those are the nuances that makes white people racist inadvertently, unbeknownst to themselves, because they were socialized. But people make things happen, and people don't make things happen. So that narrative being pushed and set forward was just like Carl von Linnaeus, Dr. Jordan Greer talks about that post-traumatic slave syndrome. The Carl von Linnaeus created the classifications of humans and decided that African people were ignorant because their brains were smaller than white people's brains. The skeleton he measures, mind you, he was a botanist. The hell he knows about measuring brains and skulls. But his science became the science of the day to push this little effort forward. Be clear, African. This is a journey that you're having, and you don't have to look for validation in it, but you definitely need to have it, and we need to have it quickly so that we can create a space where having an African center, there is some weight in it, because we don't live in a meritocratic space. And since white-centered consciousness creates the dynamics in this space, it does not put any stock in African-centered consciousness. So therefore, there is no reward in how good an African you can be, how centered you can be as an African, how fair you can be. We went through the 48 laws of power. We know what kind of mechanisms are at play in this matrix. It's not about order. It's about winning at whatever cost, use whoever you can, get whatever you can, and keep it moving. Those concepts are un-African. So we got work to do, African. We got work to do. So we're going to wrap it up this evening. And, you know, we always love to go out on a high note. I want to thank everyone for coming in with us as usual. Sister Melly Queen, our queen. Sister Melly Queen coming in all the time. General, we appreciate you. Our Sister Lotus, thank you so much. Our brother Marcellus, our new, joined us right now. I think it's for the first time, but thank you for coming in and sharing the link. We appreciate you.
Yes, Please brother. Shout out to Apiary in the Sky. We met Brother Marcellus at the first annual Agro Festival.
Get into it.
John and Grafton out in Newark.
Newark gardening tour that was this week.
The garden tour this week in Newark. Shouts out to Newark Garden to all the growers across Newark. Yes. And we met this good brother who's part of the Jano and Grafton.
He is a beekeeper, guys.
Beekeeper.
He's gonna be on the show. Don't worry about it.
We're gonna get the show.
We're gonna bring him on for African.
You're gonna be on soon, bro. So yeah. So and keeping in mind with that, we do remember to follow us our African in Business series, which is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And where we talk to a particular African that is in business, where they get to share their insights and their thoughts around business, entrepreneurship, and what it means to be an African in business, to give a space for possibility within our community. The Africans can be in business and we can be in business for each other.
And we do.
So definitely. So this Wednesday, we'll be having a good brother, 20 Bello, a DMV hip hop legend.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, but he's also real deal. He's killing it out in the game right now, spicing up all of your food.
Come on now.
Services with his Bello Burn hot sauce. That Bello Burn hot sauce. So we're gonna talk to the good brother. We
I love spice. Hear this.
Spice. We mentioned this brother on the show. Was that our last show or 2 shows ago?
Yeah, we did a review 2 shows ago. 2 African business ago.
Incredible hot sauce. It's so good. It's a great burn and great like this. The flavor profile is just killing it, and the spice is really good. Hot sauce. So we had to bring the brother on to the show. He's gonna be coming on this Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. And we're gonna chat with him and see what's up, what it's like to be an entrepreneur, just pushing it and killing it. He's out here killing right now, the sales and the reactions across the country. So we're gonna talk to the brother this week. So make sure
chop it up.
So make sure you tune in right here for African in Business series. Watching live on Facebook, and I guess now on YouTube and on Twitter as well.
Out here in these streets, coming up in the world.
Make sure. So we're gonna update the links. So Facebook's actually Soundbytes INTL Radio, right? So Soundbytes International, but Soundbytes INTL Radio. Follow us on Facebook, and you can also follow us on our Twitter, which is Soundbytes INTL, stands for International.
Yes.
Soundbytes INTL. You can also follow our YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube, which is Soundbytes International Radio. Go to Soundbytes International Radio on YouTube, subscribe to us today, and stay in tune with us, right? You can also follow us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify.
Come on, family, get into it.
Absolutely. At Soundbytes International Radio.
Yes.
So that is available for you to follow. So make sure you follow us on those platforms, right? Because that's where we continue the conversation. All these broadcasts are available in audio format for you to listen to and digest. So make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And remember, as you see it scrolling across the screen, this is soundbytes.com for all our Soundbytes content.
And
again,
on
our merch, and get on the mailing list. Because we're going to start using it, get on the mailing list. We want more of y'all to join the mailing list. We can use it and send you some, special soundbite stuff.
This is all about building the community and building the village, family. That's it.
Absolutely.
Staying connected to people who are on the same frequency.
Absolutely. Because
let me tell you, I've been many years running through the space, and listen, everybody that's here, not necessarily here for the same frequency.
Right.
So we're trying to cultivate a village of individuals who are on the same frequency. And we know that we need to fortify, who are clear about this journey of self-elevation and community fortification. Mm-hmm. So get at us, family. This is Soundbytes. This is SOUNDBYTES.com.
Okay. Also remember to follow us on Instagram as well. Soundbytes International Radio. Straight like that. Soundbytes with a Y. Also remember to follow us on Instagram as well, family. So
yes,
absolutely. Thanks. So we thank y'all for joining us. Stick with us. You know how we do. We're gonna rock out.
We
close out rocking out with that high energy.
Get
into the I am. With the brother Naeem Bricks and myself, AJ Throwback. Myself, Pat P, and the brother AJ Throwback. Rocking out to give you those vibes. So rock out with us at Soundbytes International Radio. One love, y'all. Stick with us. Let's rock it out.
I walk the face of the earth with a boldness which makes people ask who sent you. I tell them I am. They tell me that's a cute affirmation, but it's not an answer. I reply, listen again. My affirmation is your answer. It's the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny that. Yeah, the from the high hat. Feel the reflection I digress. I love me more than the love less. I love me more than the love less. Really not didn't care how manifest it. Look deep inside, yeah, you be the blessing. Really not didn't care how manifest it. Anything I want, anytime. This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny the power of I am. Hands up, talk the whole flow, yo. Anytime I'm on go, bro. Look at what high home, bro. This is my work home, so, bro. This is what
hey, our brother Nine come through.
Hey, put that fist up.
Hey.
It makes sense.
So as a child, I wouldn't be shit.
Already.
All right, our brother Nine up in the house. Woo, woo. Second boss. Dirty. Hey, but bet I believe me 1,000%. Sit here to get. Come on, Afrikan, get some. Not this. Woo, let's go face. They're wrong. I'm percolating, singing that same song. Bless all day long. That's you. How I am. Come on, Afrikan. I rock.
Well, they're absolutely right. I am wise. I said, watch, cleansed and purified of the nonsense they try to attach to my context. I am resilient. I am more than a survivor. I am a crime. This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny that. None of the truth that I have. None of the reflection I digress.
I love me more, never love less. I love me more, never love less. $1 million dreams, yeah, we manifest that. We be the blessing. We manifest that. Turn up. This is the power of I am.
This is the greatness of I am.
Power of I am.
I'm totally surprised that ain't no for mine. Had to take setbacks and learn to quick setbacks like those. I gave jetpacks and no plans on flying. Now I'm in no streets, so wasting my time. Focus my goal is to ship every dime. I get up and go to keep my folks from dying. So I'm on the road to a goal to find. Rhyme with a mean vision, refracted from every angle through a clean prism. Thought pattern reflecting in technicolor when gray. When I lost my mother, found peace inside my queen, and only in my brother's ear. All was shaping up the grand scheme. I don't wrestle to the mat on my damn deans. In a matter of time, became a champion. Now my everyday marches to do the damn thing. So my aim's to pack out every arena, inspire the future leaders with every line of the leaders of God to non-believers. Do what they can't conceive us, know what they do with leave us. Bricks they never see us. God damn, I'm feeling good, mother. What they say I'm doing, what they never would. What? Get a grasp on your life. Unity sacrificial prices. Podium done playing nice. They gonna recognize who the nice is from the north to the southeast. Kicking undeserved lane, shit about seats. I'm aligned with it, man. You cannot be.
Everything you want, yeah, turn up. Hey,
already.
Come on, Africa. Let's get some. Get some, Africa.
Tell them.
I am.
What that mean? Okay. Word.
And I am a living magnification of God. Woo! You would get some of that right there, Africa.
Yes. Hear the proof in the hi-hat.
I love me more, never love less. I love me more, never love less. $1 million dream, yeah, I manifest it.
You be the blessing.
I manifest it. Everything I want, yeah, turn up. This is the power of I am.
Yes, you already know.
Power of I am.
Yeah, find the peace in the queen, man. That's how it is. Peace in the queen, my brothers like you. All the queens around the world, we appreciate y'all. This is Soundbytes International Radio. Black conscious is the claim. One world is the aim. You already know how we do. Join us this Wednesday for African in Business. And next Monday, of course, another episode of Soundbytes International Radio. Right here. One love, family. Peace and blessings.